All right. Well, we are live at this moment. I'm going to figure out how to get this on the YouTube channel. I'm Sonia Falayan, and this is the Mind and Mana channel on YouTube. And the purpose of this channel is to inspire women who want to work on their finances and who want to do so that they can level up to a more intentional way of life that includes freedom, rest, travel, and ease. And I'm Sonia Falayan, and I started the channel because I wanted um, to really provide some hope and inspiration for women who are coming at that point of being at retirement, not having all that you need to have, feeling maybe behind the eight ball, and just not sure how in the heck you're going to move forward with the things that you want to do. You've put everyone's needs ahead of your own, and here you are at retirement wondering, what am I going to do? So I'm just here to say that there's hope. No mistake is too hard to solve. There's so much inspiration. And I really want to bring people to this channel who have some inspiration and hope for all of us. So before I forget, I would like to ask you to please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Stay all the way to the end and make sure that you include your comments. If you want to share something, I'm really open to the comments. I read all of them and I use them to improve. And so I made the decision to move to Mexico this year. There is a growing number of women who have used that pandemic experience to kind of reevaluate and reassess where we are in our lives. And some women are making the decision to leave the country altogether. They're deciding to change careers. They're deciding they want to squeeze the most out of life in the time that we have left. And many of us are doing so without the resources that we thought that we would have or that society tells us that we should have. So I wanted to bring on someone that I just really think so much of. First of all, she's from Kansas like me. I mean, really. So
Exactly.
she's already all right with me. But this is Angela Culp, and I wanted her to share a little bit about her experience working in corporate America and making some changes as she's been reevaluating her life. I did not do well in corporate America. I was too mouthy, too revolutionary, too whatever, whatever, whatever. So I really made the decision to work for myself, and I also made the decision to work part time so that I could have some control of my time. And here I am in Mexico, really living the life that I love. So the message that I want us to have today is that there's hope for what we want to do. And I wanted Angela to kind of share her story, where she is. She's been doing some major reevaluation of her life also. And I think she's just a wonderful person that has a great story to tell. So I want to turn it over to you now, Angela. Um, Give us a brief introduction and talk to us a little bit about where you are and where you've been with your corporate identity and how you're making some changes as you're looking toward the future.
Well, thank you for that warm introduction, Sonia. Now, my name is Angela Culp, and I'm actually from Kansas as well. I've been in Kansas actually on the other side. I grew up on the other side of the line in Missouri, but I've been in Kansas for the last 35 years. So, for all intents and purposes, I'm a Kansas girl too, Kansas City to be exact. But as Sonia said, I'm a corporate girl. I feel like I started out, my whole career has been a corporate career. I started out in one thing in insurance, and then I ended up in the pharmaceutical industry. So I understand when Sonia says we're too mouthy. I think by nature, the type of people we are, or just our culture, we're just a little bit more forthright when we tell people how we feel about certain things, and they're just not used to it. It's not their culture. So I've spent a lot of years having a love hate relationship with the corporate world. Although I lived in it, I somehow thrived in it, but I think I know why I did that. I think intentionally, the positions that I had, they were always sales positions. And I always made sure that I stayed in sales because sales puts you on the extremities of the corporation. You're not in the bowel of the company, seeing people every day, all day, the same people, and having all of that come at you. And there's a lot of energy that comes at you that you really have to manage. So you either have to love it and you love the game of chess, or if you don't love it, you have to live somewhere else in the extremities of that big monster. And so I was able to manage it because of that. But even with that, it still was a lot. And I get chills just thinking about it now because I just worked a contract that I was on for 6 months and off for 6 months because I have finally gotten to the point where work can be optional for me. I invested, I intentionally invested to try to get myself to tear myself away from that particular type of life. I wanted away from corporate America, always have, honestly. So I was really intentional about how I decided to save and invest my money. So invested in stocks and bonds and all the other stuff and 401ks. And then I also bought some real estate early on. And that was going to be my escape from the corporate arena. So right now I'm living my life right now in that space where I can choose to do a little bit of it and not, and I'm actually exploring ways to really not have to. No, I don't have to, but not use it at all. I want to do what Sonia's doing. I want to go and spend my time living where I want to live and doing what I want to do, exploring a YouTube channel so I can share what I've learned with all the women out there that are kind of in this position. Maybe they're 50 plus and they're just going, wow, I don't know if I have enough. I want to share with women they have more than they know.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
About having more than you know? Well,
Mm-hmm.
I think the general consensus, especially when we're talking finances, especially when you're talking the general public, when they talk finances, they always talk these huge numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And usually they're talking to Mr. and Mrs. Everyday Caucasian American couple, upper median income, upper income people. They're talking about them. So they're throwing out these huge numbers. You got to have $500,000, $1 million, or you're not going to make it, right? And it's not true. When you take a little time sometimes and look at your finances, maybe you have been participating in your 401k.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you're going to have Social Security. You may have a home that's paid for or pretty close to being paid for. So there's equity there. Somebody may leave you something because maybe an older relative or parent that you will inherit something from them. You have to kind of sit down sometimes and just look at what all you have and what's going to be at your disposal. And you have to look at what you need to live on, not this pie in the sky number. You need to look on the numbers. You look at the numbers that you actually need to live on. And what you need to live on is not necessarily what you make. If you get your expenses down, which is the number one monster, is the expenses. And I talk to women about this all the time. Your housing is your number one expense, right? Housing. Yes. And I tell women all the time, I said, guys, you may be living in this big house. The kids may be gone, or you're living in this good size home. The kids are gone and you don't need all that space anymore. I mean, they may come and visit from time to time, but you don't need that space. Mm-hmm. There's a possibility you may sell your home. And those are funds that you could either put away and invest some of them and live off some of them. And you may decide to have your favorite cousin. Now she may be a widow or divorced or living on her own or single. You might decide to let's move in together. Let's share a house. Let's get our living expenses down. If you can press your expenses down, it will blow your mind what you can do with your life.
I think that's really minimizing expenses.
Oh my gosh.
Paying down debt, eliminating debt, looking at creative ways for housing. I think that's really important, especially for women now. There are so many more options, and families are being defined in different ways now. And there are a lot of single women due to, the fact that women live longer and they oftentimes outpace their husbands, or their husbands may be ill. Or in our community, I mean, let's face it, there are men who are incarcerated or they have health problems. Sometimes in our community, sometimes women have been able to find jobs more easily than their partners have. So, I mean, I think all those things that we're talking about are valid factors to consider. And as you said, a lot of the actuary tables are based on, upper middle class white people. We already know that our combined wealth is much lower than that population. So it is important to find ways that we can embrace what we have and the strengths that we have, and to be creative and to consider new ways. I think that's so important. The other thing I would say, Angela, people for that I think has been important is to find ways to have a small a home-based business because of the tax advantages that are involved, and also to have residual income as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's one of the reasons. Like I said, I purchased. I started purchasing real estate maybe 20 years ago, 23 years ago, something like that. And because I didn't trust the system to take care of me, and I wasn't married, so I thought I can't trust the system. So I'm going to start trying to buy some houses. And I figure worst case scenario, they'll be paid off at some point, and I wouldn't have to pay them off. My job was going to be to just be a steward of those homes, manage them, manage my tenants, and the tenants would pay off the asset, right? And at some point, those assets would turn into the golden goose that laid the egg for me at some point. So I never spent any of the money that was brought in for them. I always put the money away so that the money could take care of the houses and the maintenance and that sort of thing. And now it's finally coming full circle. Time has come. Now the homes are going to pay me. So now I have an additional source of income. It's a passive stream of income that quite frankly, I could live off of that income without the other stuff. So that was a goal all along. So I want to implore women too, if you already own property, that's great. If you have the means to buy property, it's a really good thing. One of the slogans about property that I learned 20 years ago that just blew my mind is there was a slogan that says, "Don't wait to buy real estate. Buy real estate and wait."
Hmm.
And it makes me think about one of the houses I bought. I think I paid $20,000 for it, but I put $50,000 in it. It was all money from the bank. I didn't really put any of my money in it. So maybe it was $70,000 in this house. And that house right now, because it's in the city and it was in places that people didn't think people wanted to own, but people live in the city, right?
Right.
People live everywhere. And I bought them years ago, and now guess who wants to move in the city right there? So the price of that house, I think it was 70 at the time, and I think it's almost 200, up to 200. It's going to continue to go up because they're all just pouring into the city, and they're just forcing the prices through the roof. So several of them are there, so they're going to only continue to appreciate. So there's another thing. You get the tax deduction, you get the depreciation. You also get it as it's an inflation hedge, because as inflation has gone up, so have the rents. So you don't lose buying power with real estate. You actually you keep pace with it, or you exceed it. So it's just been another way to make sure that you have some passive income, and it's a small business as well because it's a properties as a group.
I think another thing that maybe we're not thinking about also is the purchasing of land. Um, I, um, I, through two divorces, I lost two homes and a lot of two very valuable assets. And just to your point, the home that I purchased with my last husband, we purchased it for 79,000. It went
Mm-hmm.
on the market for 750 about a month ago. I don't have that. I don't have that asset anymore.
Oh, see,
And so
yeah.
I and for a while I spent a lot of time, grieving over what I didn't have. But at some point I, shifted.
Yes,
And one of the things that I am doing now is I'm purchasing land with a group of other people.
that's awesome.
So, as I said, there are so many creative ways to flip the coin, or to
Yes,
look at an opportunity in a different way. I think the times that we're living in now, there's a lot of chaos and there's a lot of um, pain, but there are also a lot of opportunities if
Yes.
we're creative and and if we were willing to work together and open our minds, I think.
That is so right. That is so spot on, Sonia. There's so my mind is still being blown by all of the opportunities out there right now. And my mom brought that up because I'm actually going to I bought some land too in this city. I bought all this everything I own is kind of in the city or even in the inner city even more so. But I bought some lots and some land, and I'm actually going to build a house. And I was going to build a fourplex, kind of a Golden Girls place. And I thought, what if I build a fourplex, get three of my best friends to
Yeah.
buy and condo them out, right? So everybody owns, there's ownership in them and that sort of thing. And it's not a rental. And then I started thinking, I don't want anybody above my head. So maybe I'll do a triplex. And then I got to the point where maybe just a semi-attached two homes and a courtyard in between and a single level home. And so I do have my best friend's I'm gonna build both of them, and she's gonna buy the other one. And then I've got some other land. I think I'm going to build a duplex for some short-term rentals for nurses that are visiting and coming through Kansas City. But I'm there's so many ways if you just get on the internet, look at passive ways to bring in some income. Because with all of this saving and investing, you have to make income first,
Mm-hmm.
save some of that income, and you have to invest. You cannot sit on it in the bank. You cannot sit on in the bank. I don't know how to say that even more. If you just look at what the banks have been paying for interest, you'll know why you can't sit on it in the bank, right? Because actually it loses value sitting in the bank,
Absolutely. Half a
right?
percent, half a percent, maybe 1%, maybe.
Maybe in most cases it wasn't even 1% for the last several years. So you have to make the money work as hard as you would have worked for the money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And money will work if you put it to work. And I think that's another big one. And my mom brought that up about living together. She goes, as you get a certain age and you're not chasing your boyfriend or your husband and you slow down a little bit. She goes, you can live with other people.
Yeah.
I mean, she has her cousin living upstairs. It's more of a duplex house now, but she's got her first cousin upstairs. Her brother's in the back in a little studio. It's a big old house, but she's like, you get to a certain age, you don't have to be alone. You don't want to be alone either. You
Right.
don't even want to be alone. So I thought that's people got to figure this thing out and go
Right.
back to the way it used to be. Let's take care of each other, right?
I think that is so important. And I also think about how much less space we used to require. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
People would bring up their whole families in a 1 or 2 bedroom house, like 9 kids. And I was like, how do they do that? I mean, that's just like, it's unthinkable now. Um,
Well,
but
there are
we
certain groups that still do it.
absolutely, absolutely, and I look at what's happening, here in Mexico. There are some beautiful homes here in Mexico. Um, and also, families live together. Kids stay in the home until they're up and about or until they're about to get married. They're
Mhm.
saving that money. And I also see those practices happening when they move to the United States. They keep those
They
practices.
still do.
Um, those families work together, keep their money together, and then they turn them out.
Yeah, they
This
do.
then when they leave the house, they're ready to buy a home. They're ready. They've got a car. They've got a business.
Hmm.
So those, and it doesn't take a lot of this. I guess that's the thing. It doesn't take a lot of money to do that. It just takes coordination and working together and having that sense of value about what's the bigger picture here.
That's it. You have to have the intention. You started out talking about the intention. You have to be intentional about these things. And a lot of times you kind of go through life just going through life. But there's a lot you can do if you stop and try to make kind of plan out a little bit about what you can do. God, there's so many opportunities right now. I can't. It just I'm so full of excitement because I just keep uncovering more and more opportunity. I feel like I'm just trying to figure out what's my next move. There's going to be a few moves here, but it's just fun. It's a fun time. And I was talking to a young lady yesterday, and for some reason we were talking about when work is optional for us. We were both talking, and we were talking about how it feels. And I said, is there a way that you can convey that to an audience where people could understand how good it feels for it to be optional? Doesn't mean you stop working. It
Right.
doesn't mean you stop contributing. It doesn't mean that at all. But it sure means that you wake up, I mean, feeling so light. I feel like I float half of the time, right? You just feel like, oh my God, I they can't touch me. I love it. I can
Yeah,
decide anything.
I think that is really so important. As I had said to you, I made the decision about my youngest is 28 now, and I made the decision about 28 years ago to work part time. That my daughters are 15 years apart, and so at that time, my oldest one was 14, 15, which is when I think oftentimes parents need to stop and go back home because teenagers need that supervision. But that freedom, that time freedom, has always been important to me. And I knew that when I got to retirement age, working part time, I was going to have part time Social Security and all those other things. But I have to say that probably one of my greatest strengths is I do have a lot of faith, and I said at that time, you know, there are going to be pros and cons to this decision.
Mm-hmm.
One of the cons is going to be I'm not going to have a big fat retirement account. However, I'm pretty industrious and pretty creative.
Yes, you are.
And I've figured when the time would come, I would be able to be open to some other opportunities. And one of them was to leave the country where my money does go farther and where I don't have the kind of stress that I had before. But that freedom, that
Mm,
time freedom is
mm,
so important to
mm.
many of us.
It is. Can you give me an analogy that I can speak to that? Because I keep trying to come up with a way to convey it. Because I hear it said, even hear it coming back to me. I know what that means, but something about the way you feel when you have it. It's almost I can't find the word, Sonia. I know you can.
It really is. It's freedom.
Yes. Oh my God.
You know,
Mm,
it is. It's something that no one can take away. It's something no one can take away from. No one can dictate to you how you're going to use that time that you have. Time and our health are our
everything.
that's it. It's our
That's it.
greatest wealth. If we don't have time, if we don't have our health,
Forget the money. It
yeah,
doesn't
really.
matter. The money, it doesn't matter.
And that freedom of time, I think, also creates a peace of mind. How can you put a
Mm.
price tag on that?
You can't. That's it. You said it right there. That time freedom. No one can dictate. I think that dictate because all of my working life, most of your day has been dictated to you. You get up, you have to do this thing. Some days I can't imagine how much I squeeze into my life sometimes.
Hmm.
When you work and you have to do all of it and all of it and all of it, right? You got to work. I didn't have children, but I felt like the houses were my children because I had to tend to them, constantly tend to them and the people living in them and taking care of families and making sure everyone was okay. And I just thought, how did I do all that when I had a job? I was buying houses and renovating, and I got to be at work and got to be here. You get the phone and you're juggling balls, and I'm like, I just don't understand how we did it because I'm here now and I've got all this time to do whatever I want. Oh,
That was someone just brought me a gift.
oh,
So
oh, you are living the life.
ice cream.
Oh, is that ice cream or gelato?
This is homemade. This is the real thing.
Homemade ice
Ice
cream.
cream.
Oh my God, you are spoiled. I need to get to San Miguel. Oh no, Lake Chapala. I need to get to Lake Chapala. Right?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. What was that? I wanted to make sure there was something I wanted to make sure I said because I talk about my corporate trauma and the corporate time and I may do a short term stint back with the one of the huge pharmaceutical companies, but only on my time, the way I want to do it. Right? It's no longer kind of no longer in charge. I'm going to do a great job. I always do a great job for them, but it's going to be kind of on my time. But I have finally kind of come to some kind of decision about the gratitude I need to give to the companies that I've worked for, because although there's been some trauma, there has been a lot of good things that came from it too. And not none the least to say I met some great people, but it also allowed me to do all of whatever I've done to create this world that I feel a little more safe in. So in that word, the company causes me the trauma on one hand, but it allowed me to do a lot of things, and I learned a lot of skills while I was there. So there's some place I need to be grateful for the experience altogether. And I think I heard another interview with someone, and the guy said that your company is your first business partner. And if you treated it like that, it may make more sense for you. And he said he's teaching his kids, his college age children, that if you go out and get a job, just think of them as your business partner, right? It's a place where you go, you generate income, but you have to take that income and go do something with it. You don't buy cars and junk and clothes. You go make it.
And you certainly get a blueprint for how things operate. You get a skill set that in every job that I've had in the past, I've been able to use that information for my own business or for my own, my own further development. I always looked at it as a lab for learning that I was going to take. And I learned a lot about what kind of leader I wanted to be and what kind of leader I didn't want to be based upon my experiences.
Absolutely.
So those are, so very powerful lessons. I think you said something too that was important, which I really related to. And that was, in my corporate experience, I always found ways to be outside of the office.
That's me.
So I would do sales calls, or I'd be out in the field all day, or I wouldn't have to come to the office, or I would only have to be there for team meetings. I always sought out those kind of jobs. And actually I enjoyed them because I didn't have to deal with the other mundane for the most part.
Absolutely. So, I so resonate with that, because that was my thing. As long as I'm in sales, I'm good. Right. Mm-hmm. Come in, we have a meeting with those guys, or get on Zoom or whatever the thing was. But after that, I was off to the races. I love it. I say, you just tell me what you need me to do, point me in the right direction, give me some resources, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And that's been my work life. And I just stay out of people's hair. I don't get caught up in the water cooler talk or any of that. And I was just so happy with that. Although I was happy to a point, right? Because they had the heavy hand of corporate America coming down on you sometimes, even when you were doing that, it felt like it was heavy at times. Oh, yeah. But no, people just take into account the resources that they have. Be willing to be creative about the way they think about things, not the way we used to. These companies are not going to. What does Stephanie Perry say? These companies are not loyal. They're not loyal. I've been laid off probably 5 times in the last 15 years.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
My company will get a sales team up for a drug, and we'll get going, and then they'll just sell that drug out from under us and tell us, see ya. So that's one of the reasons I got real strong. The first time I got laid off, I was like, oh my God, what? It was a head shift. I was sitting there dizzy. Like, what is this? But after that, the next time I was ready for them. I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to Guatemala for a month. I'll come back and find a job later, right? I'm going to go to Africa and I'll come back. I'll find a job after that. And I just started, every time they laid me off, I just went on some big fancy trip and came back and found a job.
Well, what would you, do you have any parting words for women who are at that point, at or approaching retirement, who are wanting to make some changes, not sure how to do it, or who are afraid to do it? What advice would you give? I have another question too. I'm just putting a pin in it, but what advice would you give them? What kind of hope do you have for them?
Well, there's a lot of hope. That's some of the things we've been talking about being intentional about your money, looking at your expenses. First of all, hopefully, if you've already paid down your debt, obviously you're in a great place. But beyond that, start looking at making sure that debt is paid down. Because if you can get your expenses down to something that is manageable, and be really, really open to bringing someone in your home, or selling your home, mm-hmm. or leasing it out and staying somewhere else, mm-hmm. or going to Mexico and leasing your house out to Airbnb and letting somebody else manage it in your city while you continue to get passive income off of it. Just start opening up your mind. Get on the internet and look at how people are creating passive income. Sometimes there's 100 different ways. And it doesn't always mean you need to become a dog walker. You don't have to cut grass, become a dog walker, become a social media, influencer. It's not all about that. It's just a little thing. So the most important thing to me is look at what the company has for you too. A lot of times people overlook some of the benefits in the company package. One of the things I always took advantage of, it's a little thing, but I thought it was big for me, is there's legal, a lot of times they give you legal coverage for $10 or $11 at the corporate level. And I always thought, what can I get out of this? And if nothing else, you can get your family trust and will and power of attorneys, all that stuff done for absolutely no additional charge. And I always kept a trust. And every couple of years, just go into the attorney and make sure it was updated. It had everything in it. So if something happens to me, my family gets what I want to go to them. My nieces get the houses, all that stuff. So I say, take advantage of everything that the company has for you, even if you need the services you need someone to talk to, right? You need some therapy services. They have that stuff. It's free. Some people forget all that stuff is in there. Take advantage of that. Look at your resources. Make sure you pay down your debt, but be open to all of these fun, interesting ways to reduce your expenses and go have the life that Sonia has, or whatever life you intend for yourself, right? There's lots of pathways, guys. That's the big deal. Lots of pathways.
And also check out HR to see what options there are for a sabbatical and to take a break.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, if you can just take a break from the company. Most of the times it's without pay. But if you have your expenses right and you're okay with that, or sometimes you may take a little bit of change out of if you're over 59 and a half, you can take a little change out of your 401k. You're only going to pay regular taxes. There's no penalty for that. I'm trying to convince a friend right now she's super stressed. And I'm like, you know what? You can take a few $1,000s. I mean, 5, 10, whatever, take a few months off, go somewhere, de-stress and recharge and decide which way you want to go. It's just money. It really is just money.
Yes.
And you can make more of it, especially when you're de-stressed, right?
When you're de-stressed, you can make more of it. You can make more of it. And also, the other thing is, like you said, when we're not stressed, we can create more. And I really believe that our money comes from within. It comes from within.
My God. Now that's a mic drop time. That kids would call that a mic drop time, because that is it. You get more creative. The things that are going on in my mind right now, I'm thinking these are going to be easy ways. Once I start doing what I think I'm going to do with YouTube and all that, I have a strong feeling that it's going to work.
Are you able to share what your channel is going to be about? What are you thinking?
Well, it's just kind of going to be about some of what we're talking about now, but I do have a name for it, and it should be online in the next 30 days. It's going to be called The Girlfriend's Guide to Wealth. And basically we're going to take all the challenges we feel about our money. We're going to talk about the personal traumas that we suffer as a culture, even as a people, right? Most of us didn't get to sit down at the dinner table and have some of the conversations I know some of my friends have with their parents. I was always blown away by the things kids knew in my school that I went to, because I went to school with a lot of Caucasians. Right. I did. And I was just blown away. I was like, you're going on a ski trip and you're going here and you're going to Mexico. They were doing all kinds of things. I was like, what is this? We may go on a trip to Six Flags over Georgia, right? And these guys were driving fancy cars as teenagers, and they were going on all these trips, and they just had a different life. And I thought, well, why is the gap so huge? But now it's not all our fault. Right. It's not even our fault. And I want to make sure that women know in the Girlfriend's Guide to Wealth too, that it is not our fault that we're here. But the fact that we're here and we know now, we can change a lot of it. I mean, we can change a lot of that. And it's really more about what's happening in between your ears, that you can change a lot of it. We may not ever catch up with them in the numbers in this lifetime, at least at my age, but the numbers are not the most important thing. The most important thing is your personal freedom, and your personal number is very personal. It has nothing to do with my number.
Absolutely. I think that's another really important thing. If we can stop comparing ourselves to others, in terms of what we don't have, but look to others for inspiration in terms of where we're going. There's a big difference in that.
There is a big difference, and the numbers are not the same, and they don't even mean anything to us, quite frankly, right?
Mm-hmm.
If my highest income was $50,000 a year, I'm not expected to create $1 million worth of that. But if you want to, fine. I'm not saying telling anyone that's if that's your dream, you go after it. But you can do a lot on a lot less and have a very fulfilling life.
And I think that is the thought that we're going to end on, because that's a powerful, powerful thought. And I'm looking forward, Angela, to partnering with you and having more discussions, because there's so much overlap in terms of our topics.
Right.
That wealth gap for women, and I think a lot about feminomics, which was coined by my mentor Rita Wolfson, who talks about the gender of money and the issues of money for women. And then there's the racial component, the racial overlay that I really am very, 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 very committed to addressing. So I'm looking forward to more talks with you.
That will be awesome.
And shout out again to the Rashida Dow and Stephanie Perry with the Exodus Summit, inspiring so many women to make new changes and get out of their comfort zones and live where they want and live life as they want. So
absolutely, Sonia. Thanks for inviting me. This has been fun.
All right. Well, we are live at this moment. I'm going to figure out how to get this on the YouTube channel. I'm Sonia Falayan, and this is the Mind and Mana channel on YouTube. And the